Oh, hey, Internet. Are you with us?
Hello, Internet.
Hard to know.
The parts of the internet that can actually see and hear us right now, because from what I understand, that is somewhat limited.
Yeah, there's a storm on the internet, at least on the Google
Hurricane,
yeah.
typhoon.
What do they call it? They used to call it a weather event, right? Instead of calling it a storm,
it's
a weather event. Yeah. I mean, isn't all weather sort of an event? Like, it's a sunny day. It's technically an event.
I love on X, all the tech people, they love a good internet outage. I mean, we don't love it, but then it becomes like we're all comedians, and everyone's making the same joke, like R.I.P. internet. It was a good run. It's like, okay, guys. I mean,
if only we were that easy.
Yet.
If only they're that easy.
I
mean, I was watching a CBS report about Tom Hanks and typewriters, and one of the quote-unquote virtues of a typewriter is it forces you to be in the moment and not be easily distracted with all the distractions that the internet provides.
Like a book.
Yeah, like a book, type, focus, get your keys unstuck. When you type too fast on an old, like my dad had an old typewriter, and if you type too fast, certain keys would all bunch up, and you just have to stop and then pull them back. Then you can change out the ribbon. When they moved, when they moved to the IBM, what was the Selector writer, the electric typewriter, that thing was dope. That really speeded up things. But the old style where you have like these, no, I think that's just a more of an affectation for people who wistfully wish they could be Hemingway. Or
so going back to this Google outage.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Because I was actually off the internet for like half an hour before we all just joined. The whole team was like, Sarah, we have to use something besides StreamYard, which we usually use to stream. I'm like, oh, okay. So Google itself not down. Just some Google services are down. I feel like this is getting maybe blown out of proportion a little bit.
No, it's pretty fat. Their giant system-wide Google Cloud Service Health actually expanded while we've been sitting in here to include 40% more issues than they had before.
Okay.
Where are you tracking it? Is there like a quantitative?
Yeah, status.cloud.google.com.
Interesting. Because I haven't encountered it either, but now I'm like, maybe it's happening in real time.
It could be. Yeah,
there's a lot of bad emoji symbols like on this page.
Originally, it all fit in this on the single page, but now you have to scroll to see the rest of it, which wasn't the case before. I think someone.
It's hard to feel bad for Google. It's kind of I'm in it for the drama. Like, I mean, I feel bad for anyone it's inconveniencing, but it's always interesting when like one of the biggest companies in the world is having a huge problem.
I mean, it's one of those things where you become so big, you functionally become infrastructure, and then you become a risk for a lot of things, right? If you imagine every roadway in the U.S. was privately owned, and one of these companies had a bad day and they went into, bankruptcy or something, you couldn't use their roads. I mean, half the interstates are unavailable because one private company couldn't get their stuff together.
Good reality check, but like my Gmail's still working, right?
I was sending stuff to you, and it took like a good 10 seconds for it to go out the.
I mean, we're using Google Sheets for our rundown. That's up.
That hiccuped for me a little bit.
Well, I will not refresh the page.
Yeah, do not refresh the
don't
page.
Refresh. I actually put mine to where how you can download it and have it locally for just in case.
The offline version.
Just in case.
That's smart.
It's like a power outage. You just have to light candles, bust your typewriter out.
Yeah.
I kid you not. When I was a kid, I thought lighting the candles was how you got the electricity back up. If you just light the candles long enough, and I was like in second or first grade, light them long enough the electricity comes back.
I remember, I mean, because I lived in the country, so,
No electricity.
Electricity went out a lot, any storm.
Got to turn on the kerosene.
What you would do is, you light some candles, and what you do is you start calling PG&E. And you call them on the kitchen phone. and it would be me because it was busy because everybody else was calling, and you
Mhm.
would just call and call and call until finally you would get through and be like, we've experienced a power outage. And by that point, whoever was on the other side would be like, yes, 450 other people just called us and said that. But you'd be like, well, count me in. We also don't have power. That was like, my parents would always be like, Sarah, you want to call PG&E? I'm like, yeah. Like, gonna do it. It's
So
busy,
what was
it's
the
busy.
goal?
Finally, it's gonna ring.
Like what happened? Like, you were just informing them?
Yeah.
Letting them know you're angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they know at that point. They're
Yeah.
well aware that nobody has power, but you still want to be recorded.
1 minute.
At least with gas, you can still cook. So if you need to, you can make a sympathy pie or something for yourself. And
What's a sympathy pie?
I don't know, just
Sounds-
something you
sounds
just because
good.
you're
Something
something
that
you
just,
just
like,
make to,
yeah.
to occupy the time while you wait for the power to come back.
So
Yeah, I'm into that.
I have fireplaces in the house that have those piezoelectric switches.
Uh-oh.
And I had to convince to I think it was my oldest
10
child. So this
seconds.
is years ago.
We'll never know.
I will never
of
know
the
now.
I'll
You
I'll
pick it up.
finish telling
Yeah,
it
you
later.
pick it up.
Yeah. Have a good show, everybody.
Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Thursday, June 12th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
And I'm the guest, Emily Forlini.
Oh, we're just on the struggle bus today, everybody. Half of the internet is down. We are doing our best. But yes, Emily, we're so glad to have you here. It is very exciting. We're going to talk about all sorts of brain tech going on and what you have going on at PC Mag. But Rob, we have people to thank, don't we?
We definitely do. So DTNS Live is made possible by its listeners. That's all of you. And we want to thank Paul Boyer, D Laser, Brad, and our new patron, Scott, Signs, Janine Phillip, and coming straight with the annual pledge, Jason.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
We got a whole starting five
Yeah.
today.
I mean, it's a rare day when we have, I don't know, 5 new patrons.
Five, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much to everybody who supports us. We could not do it without you. So I mentioned that outage. We are, for anybody listening after the fact, hopefully you won't know the difference, but for anybody who's with us live, we're using all sorts of new stuff. We're trying to figure out how to live stream this show in a totally different way because a lot of Google Cloud services, plus Cloudflare and AWS and Spotify and a variety of services appear to be down right now. This is ongoing. It happened just about an hour ago. At least that's when we noticed it. So yes, stick with us, will ya?
Yeah.
It's
going to be fun.
It's a fun one today. But thank goodness for different services on different internet trunks. We can still do the show.
Yes. A very, very good reminder to always have a backup. This is DTNS Live. We're going to do it however we need to do it. We do it anyway. The show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better. Emily, has the outage affected your life?
Not yet, besides getting on this podcast. And we're still here, so we made it. So no, I'm good. Like my Gmail's up. I don't personally see anything, but I don't know. What about you guys?
Well,
I just made sure that I downloaded all my Google Docs that I need to use today. I just downloaded them, just make sure I've got them local so that I don't have any problems because I can't do other stuff. So just want to make sure, just to be safe, I've got a bunch of stuff downloaded locally.
Oh, you were a pro. I'm like just totally, if a tornado hits me, like I'll deal with it when it happens. that's where I'm at right now.
I'm kind of with you a lot of the time, Emily, but I've gotten burned enough times in the past where I'm like, if I entirely rely on the internet and there's something that happens with the internet, then I just have to I just have to do something else.
So yeah, the internet, like I said, it's causing us, it's wreaking us havoc today. But we are still going to try to get this tech show done. But before we do, if you're listening live, you can name this episode. I want you to head over to dtns.showbot.tv to submit titles, and you can vote on them. We'll check back in on the votes at the end of the show. So now let's kick off some things with some of the quick stories that caught our eye. So I'm going to go first here. The thing that kind of stood out to me today was Instagram rolling out a highly requested feature that allows users to rearrange their profile grid, enabling them to customize the order, and also they're doing some testing to allow you to quietly post, so you can post stuff without it going out to your entire screen. But the really cool thing here is the arranging of your grid. Back in the day when I did use Instagram, it was hectic to try to get all of your pictures in the order that you wanted people to see them. And this is a feature that for years people have been asking for, but it finally looks like Instagram has decided to do it. And now we can, organize the pictures the way that we like to organize them.
Which, for a lot of people, that is a very important part. Another important part of people's lives are toys. Not part of mine anymore because I sold a lot of them during the pandemic. But Mattel, the iconic toy maker behind popular brands like Barbie, Hot Wheels, is partnering with OpenAI to integrate artificial intelligence into their toy development process and possibly, and they kind of mentioned power them. I assume when they say power them, I mean like using them as sort of the nexus for like either a talking Barbie or maybe a talking Hot Wheel or perhaps a computerized Hot Wheel mobile, gas station. Who knows?
I mean,
Josh
really
Silverman.
Like Chucky brought to life. Like, are we going to have actual dolls that talk?
I mean, can you imagine that? Like
Yes,
all those talking
sadly.
Tinas, that one Twilight Zone episode that scared me out of my wits as a kid. And granted, I was like in third grade, but I was so afraid of those. My sister had one of those dolls. If you lie it on its back, the eyes automatically close. I used to stick that thing like in the top of the shelf so it couldn't come down and kill me.
Well, that's nothing because now that AI, it's going to be walking around the room.
Now you're going to get Megan. Josh Silverman, Mattel's chief franchise officer, expects the first product from the collaboration to be announced later this year, adding that Mattel is not licensing its IP to OpenAI, so don't expect to see a chat wheel chat, or what would you do for Barbie GPT or anything like that. What is interesting is that, I mean, Mattel's sort of, I don't want to say on the ropes, but they've been sort of in flux for a little bit, trying to figure out what their next steps are. Hasbro has spent a lot of time recently trying to make that pivot to TV movies. Like, let's recycle our IPs into franchise opportunities. Spent a lot of money in the studio. That guy's gone now. So it'll be interesting to see how this works. Now, Sarah's story was actually very interesting as well. Interpol's Operation Secure dismantled global info stealer malware networks across 26 countries, resulting in 32 arrests, 41 server seizures, over 20,000 malicious domains taken down. Group IB says that the crackdown disrupted operations tied to Luma, RisePro, and MetaStealer. Comes up with these names. Authorities also identified a major C2 server cluster in Hong Kong and notified over 216,000 victims.
This one's pretty massive. 26 countries, 32 people got arrested, 20,000 domain names were taken down. 20,000?
Yeah, 20,000. I mean, that's what they've been reporting. And what's interesting is that this shows you the extent of how cybercrime is transnational. It's no longer, associated with certain, it's a Russian group or it's a Chinese group. They operate in multiple jurisdictions because, as anyone knows, you want to mitigate risk. And the best way to do that is have a footprint in lots of places where perhaps the long arm of the law is a little bit shorter than it would be elsewhere.
So much crap on the internet.
Well,
they have 20,000 extra domains to take down. I mean, geez.
I mean, this is the thing with a lot of these things. They're back up and operating quickly. I mean, this is why having some sort of agreement that's typically done from a law enforcement group to a law enforcement group transnationally is so important. I mean, the FBI has liaisons in most major capitals around the world explicitly for this purpose. So it's one of those things that behooves all national governments to be very cooperative when it comes to law enforcement regarding these issues.
So those were our top stories. Let's jump into some of the deeper stories here. I want to kick it off here with some, basically there was a, university researchers. They've come up with a way to train robots by watching people perform tasks. And, we talked about robots in the home just a little while back about humanoid robots doing things like, taking out the trash and vacuuming and stuff like that. But the problem that comes from this is that, well, how do you train these robots to do this? For humans, this is pretty mundane stuff. We just watch our parents do it, and then we learn how to do it. We watch our older sisters, brothers do it, then we learn how to do it. But that's not the case for a robot. So what these researchers have done is they have, these are researchers from New York University and UC Berkeley. They've tackled this by developing a new system called Ego Zero that utilizes Project Aria smart glasses. Those are smart glasses from Meta to capture first-person video demonstrations of humans completing manual tasks like opening an oven or operating a dishwasher or washing dishes, these types of things. And what this Ego Zero then does is it transfers these human behaviors into robot policies with zero robot data. And then it allows the robots to learn how to do these skills in as little as 20 minutes. So basically, we put on a pair of glasses, we do what we do, and the robots simply learn how to do what we do based on watching us do what we do. And as I said earlier, it's kind of like, kids watching their parents. Is like, a little kid's going to learn how to vacuum by watching their parent vacuum. They're going to learn how to wash dishes by watching their parent wash dishes. These are the kind of things that we now are able to with these glasses and this Ego Zero. We're able to actually train robots to do stuff that we do.
Yeah, one of the holy grails for the longest time for robotics was how to simply, just anyone could train a robot to do it. Traditionally, you needed a coder, and they would have to go through the steps and map out everything. I mean, initially, when you're talking about industrial robots, and people talking about how do you train a robot so it's a lot more intuitive and a lot quicker, right? If you have to sit down and just generalize the area of where the arm should and shouldn't be and all the other things, it's a very tedious process. This could point to a way where this makes it a little bit simpler and a lot more reasonable for people who work with this. I'm a little skeptical on how depending on the person, is it just within a 2 by 2 foot area, or can you do something wider, or does it have to be simple tasks, or can it be something? For example, if I want to cook an omelet, right, I can bring the bowl, I can bring the pan, I can bring the eggs. Then I got to crack the eggs, dump the eggs in there. I got to beat them and then, throw them into the pan. But I first got to heat up the pan, put a little bit of oil, got to spin it around so the oil covers, what I mean? For us, it's a relative, I guess it's contextual, but a relatively simple process. But there's a lot of steps that we take for granted in that when I say when you want to make omelet, just crack some eggs, beat them, throw them in the pan. A lot of that stuff we automatically fill in the gaps because culturally we already, as you've said, Rob, we've watched people do it. Either our family or some guy on TV. We've done it for years, so we just sort of internalize those processes.
My gut tells me that the more complex the task, the longer it's going to take for the robot to do it. So things that can be learned in 20 minutes. I think the very first example they gave was opening an oven door. Now, when I think about it, there's not a lot of things that can go wrong with opening an oven door if you just grab the handle and open the door. If it's, if you've got to do more than that, then there's probably going to take a little bit longer than 20 minutes to do it. I also think that what they're doing here is not just training these robots to do things just in your home. I believe that it is that training data all goes back to an LLM that is learning, what does dishwashing look like? What does opening an oven door look like? What does vacuuming look like? So there's two pieces of data that it's getting it in the exact area that it needs to do it in your residence, and then or to do it that you're training it. And there's also the fact that they probably have data from hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who have actually trained these robots to do the same thing, just in different circumstances. And I think that's where you get some variance and the ability for it to kind of be smart in the way that it does it.
I mean, think about how different so many of a lot of the stuff is like kitchen focused. It could be anywhere in the house, but let's call it, kitchen stuff. It's like, where do I put my lemons in the kitchen? What corner of the kitchen does the sponge go in? And it's very, very personal to you. So that's kind of where I think this becomes not necessarily, can the robots make my life easier? I mean, the idea is yes, that's the idea. But right now it's like, can they just understand the way I like things? Like if my kitchen is nice and clean and pristine, where does everything go? Because everything has a place. And we all do things differently. That's where I think this is interesting. It's like, I am trained on a human, not some LLM. It is what does Sarah do, and I'll just do the same thing.
I thought so too. I thought it was cool. Rob freaked me out with the data just now. But it is, it's kind of a sense of control. Like I'm letting this robot in my home, but I'm going to tell it what to do versus I'm going to get this thing out of a box from Japan or wherever else, and I'm just going to let it run free. It does seem like it'll hopefully only do what you tell it to do, which would be how you would do it. So that's a good proposition. But whether it's scanning my home and secretly logging everything about my life, the products I own, like now I'm getting weird advertising. Like we don't want that.
Now I was wondering if, say, you have it trained, right, and you get a new model of robot arm or whatever, like a newer model, can it just pick up from where the other robot left off? So it already has that information. So you don't got to retrain it again, which really would be awesome because that's just like plug and play. I don't need to train this robot. It knows it.
Let's hope that would be the case. But we've got to remember, this is very, very early on stuff. This is just research that they're doing right now. So I don't think that we are not to the Minority Report stage of this to where we just look at stuff and it starts to know who we are, do what we do. But I do believe that it would make sense that if you have trained one robot and you simply just upgrade the robot you've already had, that the new robot should be able to download all the data that the old robot got, in addition to telemetry from the robot itself, so it could tell the new robot how it actually did on those jobs. I think that would be a good way for it to go as well.
And I think one of the things that sometimes gets overlooked here is like, where does the robot go when not in use? Is it literally like a robotic arm that's, descended from the ceiling? Well, okay. But that still has to be something that works for your area.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's as problematic. If you think about a lamp on one of those springy arms, you just kind of move it to the side. So as long as the arm is not like in the way.
You should see my kitchen. We don't have a lot of room. Not a lot of corners the robot can just hang out in unless it's like making the kitchen feel smaller.
Remember,
but again,
I think
we don't have one yet.
It was a week or two ago we were talking about the robots that actually kind of look like humans. So,
right.
If it looks like Rosie or if it looks like, a DS5 that's from iRobot, and it doesn't have the red light on, maybe it just goes to a little closet, goes out to a spot in the garage, plugs itself in and charges itself up.
Yeah.
I want a robot that just goes around and finds my keys and hangs them next to the door. Like I want a Roomba for my keys. It's just constantly like, where are Emily's keys? I'm going to put them in the right place for her. That's a small task I would love.
It's well, Emily, I don't know if it would work for your keys. It probably would if you added like an air tag on them or something. But
I do.
What I do 5 times a day on my watch is I'll do it right now. I'm like, where's my phone? Oh, there it is.
There it is.
There it is. Because often it's just like in couch cushions. I don't know. Some people are like, how do you lose your phone all the time?
I do too, but imagine just not having to hear that noise and be reminded that you lost your phone in a pillow next to you. Like I just want the Roomba to go and get all my valuables and just handle
and just
it
be
for
like,
me.
Emily, here you go.
Yeah.
I know you
be
need
like,
it.
Where are your keys? Oh yeah, they're next to the door where the robot Roomba put them.
It's the gentler approach.
Yeah.
All right, so we're talking We're talking robotics. We're talking AI, as we do these days. Here's another one. Google's DeepMind and Google Research in tandem launched a new AI-based tropical cyclone forecasting model in partnership with the U.S. National Hurricane Center, along with an interactive site. It's called Weather Lab, which showcases its abilities. Essentially, the model can generate up to 50 forecast scenarios 15 days in advance. So that is way way more in advance than the models that we have now, and Google says has outperformed some leading physics-based models in early tests. It's still considered a research tool. Google says it is not ready to replace public forecasting. However, if this continues to do well, I wonder what the future of weather forecasting looks like in the future.
This is the kind of stuff that I want AI to do to get this stuff right, to get it better than what we currently can do now. So if you can just keep running model after model after model after model after model, and it improves and it gets better at doing the forecasting, that's exactly what I envision. AI making the world a better place, or that's exactly how I envision AI making the world a better place. So I'm all for this. If this stuff actually works and it is at least as accurate as what we currently have, and as the reporting is saying, maybe even more so.
I honestly, your comment sort of raises red flags for me. Not so much that AI shouldn't do it, is that people often make this assumption that, it's the people that are doing the modeling that are bad, and they just get the weather wrong. I mean, the problem is when you do weather, especially when you do hurricane or any sort of tropical storm, you need a lot of data points and you need a lot of testing, right? That's why they send up balloons with gear on it to basically figure out how the wind patterns are shifting or changing. That's why they can be as precise as they are. Oftentimes, and I don't know if they're going to do it this hurricane season, but last hurricane season, they used to fly planes straight into it in order to get the most precise information about, the pressure of the area above the storm, below the storm, in the storm. The more data points you have, the more accurate picture you can have, and my problem isn't with using AI to do this. I think that's a great use for it. I think oftentimes people see that as sort of a shortcut and say like, hey, we don't need to pay for all these data points anymore because now this can come up with a bunch of models. And really the data points are how you feed the model with the most reliable, up-to-date information in order to give you a very accurate, precise picture. Because if you're telling people, yeah, this storm's going to cut right below you, and you're in the Florida Peninsula, like right below Orlando, and you live above it, it's like, well, I don't need to get out of the way. I don't have to worry about it. But if that model has incomplete or outdated information, it might give you a picture that is incomplete, and basically have people in the danger zone not aware of it until it's right on top of them.
Well, and that was sort of my question too. It's like if there are enough data points that are fed into a model where the model is pretty accurately predicting stuff ahead of time, then we all say, great. Get people out of the way of danger if they're in danger. But it also brings up a question of like privatized weather forecasting, and that has always just been something that it's basically you get it on the news. The meteorologists are working for the people. Does Google have, in the future, let's think hypothetically in the future, does Google have information that it can share or decide not to share with the rest of the world?
I mean that's the question, right? I mean, like NOAA does that now. NOAA does all the NOAA and the Air Force both do hurricane flights. They both do tracking of storms. NOAA does a lot of the things that we often assume to be just sort of sciencey stuff, but it's very important for weather mapping, right? Measure the ocean temperature. You measure the currents. You measure the breeze. You measure the barometric shift between one region to another. There's a lot of data points. It's not that you can't do it solely in software, but someone would then have to pick up that slack and then run all those, or at least test all those data points, or physically run them, right? Run around launching balloons, it could definitely be done by a private entity, but I mean, we currently have the government do it because it's beneficial for a huge swath of society, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a fisherman, whether you're an airline pilot, whether you're an airline, whether you're a traveler. All these things are affected by weather.
Whether you're just hanging out at home
and
trying not to die.
And it makes more sense, at least at least from my perspective. And granted, I'm an old guy, right? I'm a half a century old. That it's better the system if everyone pays into it and then they get all the same quality information out. Now, you can privatize that. You can maybe do hyper localized information, but I don't know. Depending on what the price points are that they want to go with, it can go either way. I don't know.
Is the weather data public anyway? So is Google just ingesting public data?
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to say, hopefully this is not going to affect NCAR or UCAR. Those are the National Atmospheric Research Center and the University Atmospheric Research Centers in Boulder, Colorado. They do the bulk of this work for the United States and basically for North and South America, I believe. I don't want to see those institutions going away and not doing what they do, because they are the ones who do the science and do the experimentation to try to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So I don't want to see that stuff go away. But if we can apply the data to an LLM and it can give us information more quickly, it can give us they can run test after test after test after test much more quickly than humans could. I don't see that as a bad thing. And as I said at the beginning, at the top of the story, I think that is a way that AI is very, very beneficial to mankind. We talk about how AI can be bad a lot of ways. This is definitely one of the ways it can be very, very good, just by being able to do this stuff at scale, at speed.
I am 110% with you, Rob. My fear isn't the technology; it's the people who look at the technology and say, "Hey, there's some cost savings in here. We can totally make it more efficient. We can, there's all these wonderful things that people imbue technology with because it allows you to do certain things faster. Although, depending on what it is, it may not be better, right? Like, we all can use a microwave. I can totally cook a steak in a microwave in under 15 minutes. Is it going to be the best steak ever? Probably not. Probably on the rubbery side. But there is you need to have an understanding of how this information is culled, put together, and then reproduced for people to ingest. And if AI can help with any of those, that's great. But if all people see is like, hey, this is so much better than what we have now, and we could save millions of dollars, so why don't we just go with this? It's like buying $100 garden hose and not paying your water bill. Like, it's not going to help you if no water in it.
It can save millions of dollars for businesses because there's a lot of money on weather. Like, sales of certain products are fluctuated a lot by money, stock futures, like stock market. It's all affected by weather. So I am sure that Google and companies around the world probably already have that weather data baked into like some kind of forecasting. So that wouldn't affect people like you and me, but weather data is premium. And so I'm sure there's a lot of attention on optimizing it just like this.
Well, if you have thoughts on weather, technology, or both, join the conversation in our Discord. It's a lively bunch. You can join by linking to a Patreon account at patreon.com/DTNS. Emily, we're so glad to have you here today because you follow this space. This is an article that our friend Allison Sheridan actually sent to us. Researchers at the University of California, Davis, developing a new brain-computer interface, allowing a man with ALS to speak again in real time. ALS, neurological disease, damages nerve cells in the brain and also the spinal cord, leading to eventual loss of muscle control. The devices surgically implanted with 256 tiny microelectrode arrays into the brain's speech-producing region. Then the electrodes capture the activity of all those neurons, hundreds of them, transmitting these signals to computers that then can interpret and reconstruct the voice quicker than current methods. What is going on here? Because that sounds pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. I mean, it's a little different. So I've been working a lot on implantable brain implants. So this one, it looks like kind of sits on top. And you saw that kind of crazy picture where there's something like coming out of his head. That's a little bit different. But some of the researchers I did talk to in the process of reporting this piece that we'll get into is producing speech with these implants is one of the hardest tasks and something they've been trying to crack. So if they're saying in this piece that someone's doing it, that's a huge update.
Cool. Well, so let's talk more about the subject of brain-computer interfaces and what you have been studying. Realistically, where do you think we are at this point?
Yeah, so for the past like 3 weeks, I've been having a lot of fun with this. I haven't put it out yet. It'll probably come out next week or the week after, but it's about the types of brain interfaces. So one is implantable in the brain, which is what Neuralink does in the sense that they drill a hole into the brain, which is crazy, but they drill into your brain, they put a little thing in there. And then another company I talked to called Synchron, they actually don't put it in your brain. They put it in a big vein behind your brain, right up here. And it sits there, and both companies, all implant companies, yeah, there it is. It's a little mesh sensor that goes up in there. It takes 20 minutes to put in there. It's a company called Synchron and based in Brooklyn.
And that's not in the brain. That's a vein outside of the brain.
Yeah, it's a vein outside. So the difference is something like this is less invasive. The creator actually likened it to like the Nexplanon birth control implant, which goes in your arm. It's like a really quick procedure just to get birth control. He was like, we want it to be like that. It's like 20 minutes. You just go on the table and they slip it right in on your brain. And then it's connected to BioWire to a little device that sits here. And so the main technical challenge with that is not being on the brain, you do get kind of less strong signals. So they have to do different types of training than something like Neuralink, which is going right in there and sitting on the brain. And so they have really close access to the data.
All right. So have there been studies that show that one is better than the other?
Well, I think everyone agrees that drilling into the skull and putting on the brain is you're going to get more data. It might be over-engineered, or it's also hard to process the more data, so it's going to be more powerful. But it depends. Like maybe someone won't.
It's invasive.
It's invasive, yeah. But maybe someone won't get an implant that could change their life because they're afraid of that. And then the Synchron is providing just enough and enabling some incredible things. And in that sense, that would be better. So it kind of like there's a future world where maybe people will shop on the brain implant market and they'll just get the one that suits their needs.
So when we're talking about Neuralink or Synchron, or, I'm sure there are other companies who are, working on stuff like this, what have, from the patient side of things, what have been the biggest wins?
Yeah, so I interviewed 2 patients with BCIs, which was probably one of the coolest things I've done in my reporting. So I interviewed Rodney with the Synchron and then Neuralink's first patient, Noland. And there are some challenges. So I think the biggest thing right now is being able to move a cursor with the implant. So what Rodney with the Synchron does is he has eye tracking tech that links to his BCI. So his BCI is connected to a Microsoft tablet via Bluetooth. That's how you connect all these brain implants. It's Bluetooth to a device. And then they can control whatever that device can do. So like browse the internet, pull up a show, email, if they have like WhatsApp on their computer, even if maybe their smart home lights are connected to the computer, like anything on the computer that you can click around, they can do. But moving the cursor is tough. So Rodney does that with eye tracking software. And then when he finds what he wants, whether it's the letter T on a text or an article he wants to click on, he thinks move my foot. That's his like hotkey for select. So the brain implant, it interprets the thought, move my foot as select on the computer. So the Neuralink guy also works the same. He has different like bodily hotkeys. Rodney's is his foot because that's his strongest signal.
Bodily hotkeys. That's something I would have never thought I would hear. Although it makes total sense.
You would think like, maybe, like blinking, would do the same thing. But it's like, no, it's the foot. That's my hotkey.
You have to think, move my foot, move my hand. You could think blink, but just doing it isn't enough. You have to think it. And that becomes like a shortcut on a keyboard that says, do that action. Crazy.
And what about Noland? What were his thoughts? Having been patient zero.
Yeah, so Noland is a really different case. Rodney has ALS, and he has a degenerative disease. So there can for example, sometimes when he thinks move my foot, there's a delay in pressing select, and they had to go back and forth like, why is there a delay? Is it the implant? And it's like, no, it's just because you have a really tough disease that's kind of, your signals aren't always firing. And he also can't speak. But Noland is 31. He's like, he jumped into a shallow lake he's a summer camp counselor, and he's fully paralyzed. So it's like heartbreaking for both of them, but he can still speak. So he can dictate a text, which is really efficient, and then press send with whatever his bodily hotkey is. I'm just repeating that weird phrase I made up. Sorry. But he is young, and he's like looking forward to building a future. He wants to, he works all day, sets up interviews with people like me. He's trying to make money. Like it's totally reinvigorated his life, like given him purpose. And so it's really cool tech.
Looking forward to, looking ahead rather, to, a time where, as people age, there may, this technology it's obviously very, very interesting in the accessibility category, but just to kind of help people along, as we just, our bodies start to fail us. Do you think everybody's going to have a BCI at one point?
That was the biggest finding for me. I kind of, at the end of all this, I do think that will happen. Not only because Synchron, the company I interviewed, wants that to happen, and they think by the 2040s that you'll be able to buy one for $45K. And I think people would do that now. People do crazy stuff with their bodies, but once it's available, people will explore it. And it could boost like productivity in some ways, because it can increase the number of actions you can take at once. So let's say you're typing something at the same time, you could be moving the cursor with your mind. So you're kind of like multitasking, because you have different inputs now, and your brain can almost handle multiple things at once. You could be like writing an email and sending a text, because you have just a fleeting thought. When you write the email, you might be writing it, you're thinking like, oh, I got to tell my mom I'm coming home. And it could just do that instead of you completing the email and then texting your mom. So that's the promise, is kind of expanding our capabilities, our consciousness, like the way we live, work, talk to each other, things like that.
I mean, $45K. I mean, I don't know what
That sounds
in the
insane
future
to me.
but that
It's
seems like a
people
steep price to pay for
people who do biohack stuff and also
Exactly.
have the money to do it are going to do that.
Well, that's the cost of
a
car. A lot of cars. That's kind of a mid-range. So
Yeah.
Emily, when you said bodily hotkeys, the first thing that came to mind was like, now I'm not putting anything in my brain. I'm not putting anything near my brain, but on the inside of my head. But if I could wear a hat, because I love my hats. If I could wear a hat, and it basically allows me to turn myself into like a stream deck, to where I could just start thinking things and hotkeys, just fire stuff off. I'd try that. Not for 45 grand, Roger. I'm not spending that kind of money. But if we get this down to the technology to where I can buy a nice hat, put a hat on, and just start thinking about stuff, and stuff happens on my computer.
It kind of makes me feel like, this
grand.
whole sort of like VR headset era that we're in, where we're like, does it work? Does it not work? Like, we're going to think of that as like, ha ha ha. Remember when we all put headsets on?
Yeah, but like, I mean,
and thought that was the way of the future, and now we just have brain implants.
It's weird, because when you described it that way, Emily, the first thing I thought is like, this is basically a competitor to like an LLM assistant, right? Like, instead of just offloading a lot of these responsibilities, like, let my mom know that I'm coming home for dinner, right? You just tell the LLM and it'll handle the rest. You're doing it yourself. And so now you're going to have this sort of parallel track of like, should you do it yourself, or should you entrust it into this like, digital assistant that's an LLM, composite, 3 times over with, 2 other LLMs. And, basically, because everything is about convenience and efficiency. But at some point, you just like, man, I'm just going to text you.
Right. It's today, I mean, a similar thing. So they're working with NVIDIA to basically figure out, can you train an AI on brain data, which is probably the creepiest thing ever. But an example of how it would be used is if you are in your room, you look around, the room's dusty, and then you look at a Roomba. Second time talking about Roombas today. You look at a Roomba, it might suggest to you, do you want to turn the Roomba on? So it's kind of like when you're emailing in Gmail or autocomplete in text, you have to kind of decide, like, do I want to take that suggestion or no? Like, do I really need to vacuum or, maybe it tells you, your room's kind of gross, you should vacuum. So it's like going to be this exchange with the technology that is really fraught, but could be helpful. It's kind of like anything.
It'll be interesting. I mean, if you do it when you're sleeping, like, what are you going to get? Like, I have weird dreams of riding giant elephants fighting space lobsters. I don't think that's going to help clean up my. Maybe it might.
When you wake up, then the elephants.
I'll have a surf and turf buffet in
lobsters.
front of me, all set up.
So you just have to speak it into existence or think it.
Something I learned that surprised me is you can kind of turn them off. So it can always be implanted, but you can kind of deactivate it. So if you don't want to see your weird,
just I just
I don't
want to
know.
be a human.
Seeing how expensive it is to upgrade my house, I don't know if you're going to need a new brain net or something that needs to be surgically implanted because you have
right now you don't, and everyone pretty much agrees. There's no reason for anyone on this call to get one, but when it's going to start to get sticky is when there's certain app experiences or services you can only do with the newest tech. I would have a cheap old iPhone today if I could, but none of the apps will work. I can't Venmo my friends, but this is really advanced, 50, 100 years. But if people like the tech and it becomes part of society, then you're probably likely to be thinking.
Probably didn't get it when you're born. They just wire it in when your head's still soft.
Well, speaking of paying for things, streaming subscription prices on the rise. Many of us who love our streaming services have watched the prices creep up over the years. The market is also seeing more consolidation than ever, so that makes things interesting. But there is some news coming from Amazon. Roger, what's the latest?
So Adweek did a report about the amount of time filled with ads on Amazon Prime Video, the one where you pay for Prime Video or you pay for Prime and you get Prime Video, and not the ad-free version, but has increased, basically doubled for folks who haven't paid for the higher ad-free tier. The amount is double what it started with initially, and this is just based on the number of ad slots available and the time. And the Adweek basically figured out it to be about 4 to 6 minutes per hour of content. Now, my question is, at what point does that just sort of kind of embitter the experience where you're paying, but you're getting ads? So it's a lot like cable TV. But at some point it's well, do I really need this? Do I really want to?
Yeah.
If I'm going to watch ads, why don't I just watch?
Why
don't I just watch Pluto TV or another fast?
Traditional cable or just TV in general, right? I have always been of the assumption of if I'm watching an hour show, I'm watching a 45-minute show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because there are 15 minutes of commercials, and that just I either watch them, I go to the bathroom, get some water. Who even knows what I do during those commercials? But that's just part of the experience. It's not an hour. Watching stuff that is an hour that is not ad supported is wow, it's really an hour, because you have to retrain yourself to remember that there are different ways that we can watch content.
Yeah, I distinctly remember, as streaming was really getting popular, and you'd watch something that had a 58-minute runtime, and it almost felt like you watched a short movie, because if it didn't have any commercials in it, that a third to 25% of the show is nothing but commercials. Some of us are old enough to remember when there were 4 channels, and no matter what you watched, you got a commercial of about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, every 7 to 9 minutes. That's just how how it worked. In fact, the TV shows were produced so that they actually had logical breaks at those times, because they knew the commercials were going to be there. So so I know that there are some younger folks who may be listening. That's just not their experience. I don't know though. I'm looking at this. It's if I'm paying not to have ads, should I have ads? Because I thought that was the deal. I'm paying you to watch this stuff without ads, and now you're adding ads into it. It seems like the deal isn't what the deal used to be.
Well, and they added the no ad or the ad free tier for a few bucks more. If you
got to pay more to get what I already got. Yeah.
I mean, to get more.
That's the thing, right? Is it's let's upsell you on the thing that you had before, and we took away from you. And if you don't want ads, you just pay more. It's okay, some people can do that, but the rest of us, when we're going through all of our receipts at the end of the month, it's why am I paying for this?
It's weird because I feel like they should almost be pushing people to want the ad tier, like the cheap tier with ads, because I think they make more money on that.
Oh, they
like,
definitely
yeah.
do. They definitely
yeah.
definitely make more
So
ad.
how does that work? They're kind of smoking people out. Like if you keep putting too many ads, they're gonna upgrade. So which one's better? I don't know.
And I'm sure there's a good median point where people are like, all right, I'll bite the fee because, like, say I pay $139 a year for Amazon Prime, I'm getting the Prime delivery service and the Prime Video and the Prime music or audio is nice to have pot sweetener, and so you'll suck up for the ads. But at some point, it's like, I don't know if I want to sit through this old episode of Magnum PI or Hill Street Blues or whatever it is, because they used to have ads, but like, I'm old, I don't want to see ads. If I want to see ads, I'd watch MeTV.
So here's the thing, on those older shows, I don't mind the ads just because they were already designed to have
but
the
they don't
ads
put them
them.
in those spots.
Some of the good ones do.
mostly
Pluto was
do.
pretty good.
Sometimes they do, but
Mostly
at least half the stuff I watch, it's always like, wait a minute, there's
It's
a
just
natural
like
ad
an
break.
ad in the middle of somebody's tearful confession.
Like, oh no, you died, and then it's like some sort of deodorant commercial. It's like,
They don't always get it right, but like some of like Pluto is pretty good. Samsung TV is pretty good.
Fast TV generally is a little more spot on because they're fashioning themselves after sort of traditional TV watching, because you're not you don't have the same level of control. But man, like, there's some things where I tried to start up on Amazon Video or Prime Video, and it's like being annoyed at the movie when you go watch movies and you're sitting through a bunch of ads, and then that's even before the trailers, right? Ads, PSAs, and then the trailers, and then the movie, and you're like 35 minutes in.
I think I could go for a plan where just promised me there would be one ad or like two ads, like the one ad plan. But this is scary because it's almost like there's no end. They'll just keep adding them, which is like what this story is about. So if there was a one ad plan, I would do it.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a tipping point. I would imagine that Amazon will continue to test, because one of the articles that was talking about this said that they are planning to add more time to add. So they'll just keep testing it till they get to the point to where, oh, this is where people actually won't watch anymore. Yeah. Let's dial that back a little bit. And to be completely honest, I mean, they're almost doubling their time, but it's still like 6 minutes of ads for an hour. That's nothing compared to the 80s and the 90s.
I think that's a long time, though, in modern standards. They built these businesses.
Modern standards, maybe.
Modern standards,
but to me, I'm like, I mean,
but their whole business model is to
great.
fuck the traditional.
I put the laundry in the dryer. It's perfect.
I mean,
but like again, like back to your point, Roger. It's like for people who are just used to commercials being that's just part of the existence. Either you watch them or you say, oh, this is where I, take a break.
This is where you go make hot
water, whatever. I think that's interesting to figure out, like, okay, do we get to the point where we're like, no, I want 60 minutes. You said it was a 1 hour show and I want to be here for 60 minutes without commercials. Also, all commercials are not horrible. I mean, some of them are useless to us, but many of them are like, oh, I like that commercial. I like that song. My biggest thing with a lot of streaming services is that you just see the same commercial over and over because not enough companies are buying those ad spots.
Yeah.
Well,
so I'm just like, just give me some variety. My goodness, where is it?
But like, that's the point of the ads, though, right? It's to leave an impression, right? Like whether or not you need.
Yeah, but you can't watch this. like, it's like, okay,
they have other thoughts, Sarah. They believe you can. In fact, they believe you can watch the same ad 3 times in a row.
Buying the ad spots. That's
the worst is when it fails. That ad fails, and you have to rewind because the video stalls, and it plays you the same video over again. You got to sit through it. It's like, yeah, I get it. I need a colonoscopy or some sort of, thing because of my age, and you're going to sell me this stuff, but I don't want to see it 3 times.
No, they're gonna give it to you unless somebody else buys that ad spot. Okay, moving on. Rob, let's see what's in the mailbag today.
Kevin wrote in about our discussion on AI search and plummeting referral traffic to publishers. And he writes, for what it's worth, I used to run a top 100K website, but over the last 5 years, the amount of traffic from AI bots has crashed the site frequently. 90% of the traffic is now bots, and they don't respect the robots.txt files. I ended up shutting down the site because it was a labor of love, and the site didn't generate revenue, and upgrading to support the bots would have cost thousands of dollars a year. I'm sure the only admittedly very niche site admin that opted to shut down the site because of bots. I'm sure he said, I'm sure I'm not the only.
Oh, I doubt you are, Kevin.
And it's funny because I literally just looked not too long ago. I have a site that I haven't posted anything to it probably in 10 years, but it's still in maintenance. But I went to look to see just how much traffic is from bots, and it's like 84%. Now, I didn't make the distinction between, crawlers and bots that were specifically LLMs that were crawling it. But 85% of the traffic to a whole website is nothing but bots crawling the website. So that makes me wonder, is it time to shut that thing down?
I know. Well, at that point, it's sort of like, yeah, there might be some folks who would be like, oh, I like this site. Why'd you take it down? But it's like, if it's really sort of running on some bot back channel nonsense thing, at what point do you say, this isn't really serving the community I thought it was serving?
It's serving the bots.
It's serving the bots. Yeah. Feed the bots, everybody.
Because you're paying to support them, right? So Rob, do you pay more per month to you need to upgrade infrastructure for your so-called traffic?
Yeah, you're at least paying for your domain, right?
Yeah. So I do run some other websites on the same host. So I am paying for the other stuff. And so far, this hasn't really become a problem to where it's costing me more, but I will definitely start looking at it, because if it does, like I said, I haven't written a post on this particular website in over 10 years. So there's just I'll let the Wayback Machine, serve people if need be, because like I said, I don't want to pay more for something I'm literally no longer using.
Mm-hmm. And the robots.txt thing stuck out to me in that comment, because that just doesn't seem to work in the modern era. Like, I work at Ziff Davis, and we filed a lawsuit against OpenAI because they're crawling all of Ziff Davis, like CNET, PCMag, Mashable. Mm-hmm. They're crawling all these sites, and they are ignoring the robot.txt. And so it's like there's no agreement basically anymore. So they're just going right around, and it's a free-for-all out there. And I'm not sure that Ziff Davis is going to win. I have no idea. They got a bunch of evidence, but people are pissed, just about this whole AI thing. And I think bots fall into that category.
Indeed. And we know that many of you have thoughts about this category as well, because you send us feedback every day. Keep it coming. It helps inform us what you want to hear more about, and how you feel. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Emily Forlini, such a pleasure to have you on today. We're talking about brain implants. We're talking about robots making our kitchens better. We're talking about robots.txt making our lives worse. But thank you for being with us for all of it. Let folks know where they can keep up with your work.
Yeah, I love being on here. You guys are great. So Blue Sky is a good place to find me. There we go. There it is. Emily Forlini at Blue Sky. Same handle, pretty much Twitter, TikTok, if you want to see some cringy videos, but I'm out there, or just read my work, PC Mag. You can find my bio.
Well, we're so glad to have you. Come back early and often.
I will.
Good.
Folks, during the show, you've been submitting your titles over at dtns.showbot.tv, and we've got a bunch of them. It looks like we've got 50. It looks like we've got 49 submissions today, and
that is up from yesterday. So Thank you. Everybody's having some fun in there. What do we got?
So let's see here. Let's start off at the top. Larry in Atlanta is kind of running away with it. How to train your robot. Zoe brings Basins comes in with bodily hotkeys.
I like that one.
So here's one by Line Jim Video. Diversify your international malware operations. I don't know why I like that one. That is cool. Diversify your international.
I like Fred 819's Barbie Dream Prompt.
That's a pretty.
Because you dream house, but now it's AI Dream Prompt.
There's so many ways Mattel could go with it, and hopefully they're all tasteful.
Here's another good one. Partly cloudy with a chance of Skynet. That is by Eyewear Lederhosen.
I like that one.
Oh, that's fun.
So, Sarah, what did we decide to go with?
Well, it was tough. It was tough. But Zoe Brings Bacon gets the bacon today with Bodily Hotkeys.
Oh, come on.
We had to do it. We had to do it.
If you saw that in your podcatcher, Bodily Hotkeys.
Bodily, yeah. Tell me more. Yeah. Either you're like, ooh, Bodily Hotkeys, or you're like, ugh, sounds horrible. But either way, you're going to click. That's what we're hoping anyway. So thank you, Zoe. And thank you to everybody for voting and submitting. And we'll do it all again tomorrow. But Roger, we have some people to thank today, don't we?
Yes, we do. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone on the Twitch chat for supporting us, especially through these tumultuous periods. We have Zoe Brings Bacon, who cheers us on with bits. Zoe Brings, as well as Technique for giving us a shout out to 42 viewers. Thank you, one and all. I know it was a little topsy-turvy because of the Google Cloud outage, but I think we managed pretty well. Thanks to you.
Indeed.
So, folks, if you would like to get a recap of the week's tech headlines with insights into how technology affects and disaffects African Americans, then check out the Tech John, where host me, Robb Dunewood, Stephanie Humphrey, and Terrence Gaines dive into the top tech stories of the week, delivered from points of view you don't always hear in mainstream media. New episodes land Tuesday afternoons. Find it wherever you get your podcast, or visit the Tech John. That's the techjawn.com.
Tech John is a great podcast. Do add it to your repertoire. But speaking of podcasts, you can watch us live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC, and you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We're back doing it all again tomorrow. It's going to be Friday, and Len Peralta is going to be drawing the top tech stories. Hope to see you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.